For you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man. Oh my God, do I sound terrible. And welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome to Straight Talk for the home of those who love to think. How are you today, Mr. Harris? Croaking
away. You know what I thought as I was listening to myself throughout the normal course of the day? I thought there was some improvement. And I thought, yes, I'm glad I rested my voice yesterday, and now I can really contribute in a meaningful way to my colleague.
You're already sounding better. Maybe it was just one of those, you were still in the rest mode.
Maybe.
And now that a little bit more blood is pumping there, it's sounding all right. You're coming along nicely, Mr.
I'm going to try. I made sure to get my water today. You'd be proud of me. I've got my
very good,
my rather large bottle of water following your lead.
Let people know I got to keep you on. I got to keep you on the straight and narrow.
You certainly do, and you do a fine job of it, and I do appreciate it more than I normally say.
You're my friend and partner. I got to look out for you.
You do a fine job, my friend.
Thank
Other
you.
than the fact, of course, I came down with something, and I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But it was in the air.
What came to my mind then is just, thank God we both aren't horse.
Yeah, can you imagine?
That would be like a little bit too close.
That would be far, far too close indeed.
Yeah, but
you had a good day?
We're doing fine. I did like the little message you had sent me a couple of days ago with the friend one, right? What was it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember what it is, but either way, it was a good text.
Yeah.
Well, much appreciated.
I come across these moments. You find something that you can really relate to, and
you say, "Yeah, I got to pass it on."
Things that goes that this defines my my friendship with my dear friend.
That's it.
I like the one I sent you today with the Bijan cricket.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. I think I put a heart on that one.
No, it
was a laugh.
I love your accent. The Bijan accent, of course,
man.
One of my favorites. But I can never do it.
Yeah,
I admire folks that can do it. You and my brother do a fine job of it.
I had good scenarios with that, right? Something came on, and then even when I was in college in the U.S., which, of course, I've also been accused and never went there.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah, the Bajan accent. Go blind, man. I tell you, man, he paint the bottom of the car black. The ransom, man, paint the car brown, dang. He say, I ask him, man, why you paint the bottom of the car brown? He says, the closest thing you have to the black. But then I had this guy in college, and I used to tell him all the time, I said, man, what was his name anyway?
Don't know.
I'm trying to remember. I know you don't know. But I'm trying to remember. We used to play tennis together, and that was the one good thing about him. He was a really nice guy, actually. Really nice guy. And I actually met him when my brother was sick. And, being in the U.S., it's like you always wonder, how is so many people and everybody's alone?
Mm-hmm.
But my brother was sick, and I just really needed some help at that time. And it was like, I was like, where am I going to go? And I'm in this huge complex. And it's like God just guided me. And I said, I'll go up the stairs there and knock on the left. And I did. And he answered the door. Well, actually, it was his son answered the door.
Cool.
Then I said, is there any adults home? By the way, he learned my name, and he couldn't pronounce it, this little kid, so he kept calling me Radio. Radio, Radio, Radio's here, Radio's here. I was like, okay, that's my nickname, that was Radio. But his dad was very friendly. He used to work for one of the newspapers. Actually, I think it was Sun Sentinel he used to work for.
Okay.
A very kind person. Caribbean people, right?
Yes, right. So he was a Bijan, was he?
But the thing is that in all of this complex, and trust me, man, there has a lot of white people there, the melanin impoverished. Yeah. I'll never forget this one white guy. I'm sitting by the pool. So he walks up to me and says, I don't like niggers.
Wow.
He said, but don't take it personal. I was just raised that way. And then after that, he says, can I bum a cigarette? I said, well, of course. What more could I do for you? I mean, after all, you don't like niggers. I can just give you a cigarette, help lead you somewhere. But either way, in this entire complex,
That's a horrible word, by the way.
yeah, but supposedly,
It's a horrible word.
I think some people make a big deal about it, bigger than it should be, because I really couldn't care less, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It really, honestly, there are some things that bother people that doesn't bother me. I really don't care about that.
Yeah.
But either way, I knocked on this door. But sometimes we get programmed, like there's words. Oh, supposedly we're supposed to respond negatively to that. Okay.
Well, I heard one comedian once said, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it might have been Ice Cube. I'm not sure. But he said the word originated, obviously, from slavery. So it was a white person's description of a black individual. So once upon a time, it started out as their word. But now black people have,
turned it into their word.
Turned it into
hey, what's
their
up, my
word.
nigga?
Exactly. So now it's their word and is no longer
I'm supposed to have
a white person can't even say that word.
But I mean, there was even that word in the dictionary, right? Because I remember that, my little Oxford dictionary. One of the other things I used to do, walk around looking at the dictionary all the time. There was that word / phrase, nigger in the woodpile. You ever saw that one?
Yeah, I did. Now, by the way, I said it's a terrible word, not so you could repeat it 5 or 6 times.
Just so that somebody doesn't say, let's call off reg on this guy.
Let's just
mention his words.
leave it alone.
So either way, the thing is that in this entire complex, Harris,
yes,
I knocked on the one door with a Caribbean person.
What are the odds?
Godsend.
Godsend, indeed.
And
he knew you needed help. He knew you needed a friendly face.
Yes.
He made sure that first door that
it was like that.
Was a friendly door.
No, and I'm serious.
And the door shall be opened onto you.
I had to walk the crescent moon, if you like, in terms of that shape, past many apartments, and I was guided just to that one. I knocked the door, and there was a Caribbean person. And trust me, in this complex, I didn't even know there was a Caribbean person. I did know there was 1 or 2 Puerto Ricans, mind you.
There you go.
Because one time they had me drink some of this, what they call it, aguardiente or something. Hey, sabor eso.
Hey, man.
Like they say, taste this. And then, I'm thinking, I didn't taste anything. And then I walked off, and that's when the world ended. I fell in a hole that didn't exist, etc. But I'm not a drinker. But bottom line is I found this Caribbean guy, and, it was a really good relationship that we developed. But he was Bajan, but he just cracked me up. And I just told him, I said, I swear to God, no matter what you say to me, it's going to make me laugh, even if you threaten my life. So
it is one of those accents. And certainly, to
nice
your
accent.
point, if you cannot find someone from the Caribbean, a Latino plays a good second.
Yeah,
That's a good second place.
The Latinos are pretty good, but they were a little bit of a crazy group trying to get me to do things I didn't want to do, but it was good. They were definitely a good second.
Yes.
But today is an exciting day, Mr. Harris. Need I remind you?
It certainly is.
I'll remind you.
Yes, please do remind
I'm
me.
sure everyone else remembers.
But you remind me.
But I'm reminding you.
Yeah.
Because I know you've been kind of sick and out of it with that throat thing.
Tell me.
But either way, ladies and gentlemen, today is going to be an exciting day, as we mentioned before on the Candidates Forum, chatting with all of our fallen soldiers, for the want of a better expression, those who put their selves on the line, gave us the sacrifice in terms of wanting to serve us and the country. We're going to be chatting with none other than Sterling Dwayne Ebanks today, starting at 5 o'clock. I did send him a little text just to confirm that we were still on, and I could hear the trotting. I think he's on his way. So we should be good for 5 o'clock.
Fantastic.
And while my colleague is still shuffling, again, I will want to make this announcement on behalf of FC International about the thing that you can do on your summer vacation with the kids.
Yes.
So here it is again, FC International, 1 week in August, 11th to 15th. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., boys and girls ages 4 to 16. I want to get you playing some football, keeping you healthy, keeping you nice and strong at Marie Martin Primary School. There's going to be T-shirts provided on the last day of the camp. Lunch will also be provided on all these events if you and or your kids. Sometimes we got big 16-year-olds too, wouldn't you say, Iris?
I do. Tell me something is like... Is Kennedy still involved?
Yeah, you're right.
FC?
You're right. As far as I know, yes, definitely.
He's, you know what? I got to give a big up to him. First of all, a shout out to my friend Kennedy Ebanks, if you're listening.
Like how he stays looking so young?
Boy, with that too, but I think it's all the walking and talking he does. But he has been a loyal servant of the FC Football Club, obviously a football club based in Georgetown.
Absolutamente.
And certainly almost, I think FC, in my mind, is synonymous with Kennedy.
Same thing, yeah.
I think when you hear the name FC Football Club, automatically my brain gives a picture
FC International,
of Kennedy's smiling face.
I agree with you. I agree. So if you're interested in the summer camp, again, between August 11th to the 15th, boys and girls, 4 to 16. Sometimes you got 50-year-olds, but they're still 16. I'm sure Canada will let you in there. The number to call is 323-1993. That's 323-1993. I'm also seeing another number here if you want to call out as well, 925-722-96, just to mix it up a little bit, 925-722-96. But it looks like the real one highlighted that you should be calling is 323-1993. All righty then. So with that, Mr. Harris, what do we say? You got any?
Well, I got some.
Are you good enough for the weather and the news today?
I'm going to give it a shot, man.
All
right. I turned the microphone on. I turned the webcam on. So I said, today I'm going to participate if it kills me.
I think our good gentleman's downstairs. Are you downstairs?
Well,
all righty.
If he is, then somebody hopefully might be there to let him up. If not, you want to go get him?
Yeah, I'll go get him.
All right, fantastic.
I'll ask the audience to just excuse me for minutes, and I'll be right back.
All right. As my colleague goes downstairs to collect our 5 o'clock guest, let's walk through some of the weather, shall we? Last night, thunder showers were again in the forecast, and I'm always a little bit, wary of giving that forecast, given the fact that every time I've said it, there have been no thunder showers. But I expected last night that there would have been, given the evening that we all saw. I mean, really, we were encircled by dark, otherwise ominous-looking clouds. So if anybody was going to get, rained on, it would have been last night. Well, I don't know where it rained, but it didn't rain in my district or in my neighborhood. Again, it was a beautiful star-filled night. No wind, no rain. I don't know if it rained where you were, but I'm starting to think that every time I see thunder showers in the forecast, I might just skip it. Today, light southeast winds and slight seas can be expected over the Cayman Islands for the next 24 hours due to a weak pressure gradient currently over the Northwest Caribbean. Taking a look at your latest forecast model brought to you by the National Weather Service. Let's see. Winds today tonight expected to be out of the east at 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. And there is a current temperature where there normally is a current temperature, but I don't see it anymore. It hasn't popped up on the otherwise newly redeveloped and restylized Cayman Islands Weather Service page. So high expected tonight of a high of 82 degrees. About a half an hour ago, it was 89 degrees, so I suspect it hasn't gotten much cooler than that. But also isolated showers are forecast for this evening. So if you do see some clouds, maybe you can tell me about it tomorrow. In the good news category, the government is seeking volunteers for Older Persons Council, including, according to an article that appeared in my favorite Cayman Independent. Boy, I love that haircut. You see it? I'm going to get to you in a minute. Our guest is in studios, my very, very good friend, our very good friend, who I'm anxious to certainly talk about at 5 o'clock, but he's going to have to wait at least 15 more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So in an article that appeared in the Cayman Independent, the Ministry of Social Development and Innovation is recruiting volunteers to serve on the Council of Older Persons. Applications are now being sought for several 4-year voluntary positions, including chairperson, deputy chairperson, and district representatives for Boddentown, Georgetown, Northside, West Bay, and the Sister Islands. The ministry is also seeking a medical doctor with experience in geriatrics or relevant care, plus an attorney at law with relevant legal expertise to join the council. Now, I was a little concerned there when they were setting up a council for older persons. Presumably persons of retired age are going to, come forward. But why would you want to have a medical doctor on that council? Are you so concerned about the age and health of your council? You make that statement, is there a doctor in the house? Well, yes, he's in the house and he's on the council.
A doctor and a lawyer.
And a lawyer. Well, there you go, Can't have one without the other, I guess. They were almost on a good trend, but Got to bring a lawyer in the room. Anyway, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, or you have interest in serving on the Older Persons Council, persons may, in fact, submit applications through an expression of interest form and submit a resume, including your educational, professional qualifications, volunteer history, and commission and or board experience. The deadline for applications is the 3rd of August, which is Sunday coming up. Completed forms and resumes should be submitted to mofsd@gov.ky. So if you are interested, certainly want to encourage members of the community to serve on a very important council that does some very important work, caring for and planning for our senior citizens, those who came before. I think the Bible tells us that we are supposed to, be caring or caregivers to our older persons. I think you can probably...
The young, elderly, and the orphans.
I think you can quote perhaps the chapter and verse.
Probably could.
He's a Bible man, so, I can always go to Ellio Solomon for quotes from the Bible, though I do suspect I could also go to our special guest in studios.
He's a Bible man.
He will probably also be able to give you chapter and verse, and he would ask you, which version of the Bible you want to hear it from?
Speaking of that,
New King James,
might be able to get all the commas.
The American version, the English translation.
But speaking of that, Austin, do you remember many moons ago when we were on the Rooster? Remember we hosted this gentleman, and I'm pretty confident he was a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes.
This guy was sharp. I don't know if I can't remember his name, but I just remember him. Like, he knew every verse first.
Yes.
He would even tell you where there was a comma. I was like, this guy is sharp.
You mentioned Seventh-day Adventists. I find in general, persons of that faith have a much stronger knowledge of the Bible.
On the word,
and they can, in fact, repeat it, on demand.
Yeah.
But I had read somewhere that, if the word is not in you, it can't come out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, encouraging persons, whether it be your morning devotions or morning and night, to read a little bit of daily scripture every day, either individually or, as they say, the family that prays together stays together.
Mm-hmm.
But in so doing, you get that word in you so that when temptation comes, you can bring it out in defense. Just one more bit of good news, which I want to mention in particular for our brothers and sisters on the Sister Islands, because we're always talking about Grand Cayman news, but we are 3 islands that make up the Cayman Islands, and I want to make sure that our family on the Sister Islands feels some love. The Faith Hospital has now recently enhanced dental care with a new CT scanner, Ellio. A new cone beam computed tomography, or CBCT scanner, has been installed at Faith Hospital in Cayman Brac and is the first of its kind on the island. The cutting-edge dental imaging system provides high-resolution 3D scans of the oral and maxillofacial region. Boy, they really put my vocabulary to a test today. This, they say, will allow for more accurate...
Is that fancy words for side and front?
Yeah, something like that, exactly, Doctor's words.
Yeah, of course.
This will allow more accurate and efficient treatment planning for a variety of dental procedures, according to a press release from the HSA, or Health Services Authority. Previously, patients in Cayman Brac requiring this level of imaging had to travel to Grand Cayman, despite the scan itself really only taking about 5 minutes. The CBCT scanner is a major upgrade in the diagnostic capability and can be used for both children as well as adults. In particular, it is particularly beneficial for planning complex procedures such as dental implants, wisdom tooth extractions, difficult root canal treatments, as well as diagnosing, there's that word again, maxillofacial fractures and pathology. The 3D color images and panoramic view of the oral cavity provide greater clarity and precision than traditional 2D x-rays. So if you are in the Sister Islands and if you're thinking about your next dental checkup, you can have the added assurance that should you have to go through a complex procedure, well, they've taken the guessing out of it. You'll have now a panoramic view of your mouth.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't have to fly to Grand Cayman to get it done. I think kudos are certainly in order for the HSA. I think it's important that when we develop our healthcare infrastructure, whether it be equipment, personnel, or even infrastructure, that we always are considerate of what goes on in the Sister Islands as well. Because, many, many times we can get almost complacent to think that Grand Cayman is the center of the universe. But in fact, if Grand Cayman is the Earth, then the Sister Islands are both the moon and stars. Well, no galaxy is complete with all of the above.
You gotta, first of all, let's not underestimate the good Cayman Brackers, right? The Brackers have come to Grand Cayman in a good way. They've taken over the place. They have a lot of the top jobs. Even if we talk about the hospital right now, it's Miss Yearwood who's head of HSA. Where is she from other than the BRAC? So a lot of good persons there from the BRAC, but it's good to hear. It's good to hear that, and I think HSA does a lot of positive things, and we need to remember that a lot of times they get beat up unnecessarily, they get some bad press, but they do some awesome things, and kudos to them on those things. And again, specifically as you speak now on the dental services.
So I got a message, and normally, as you say, all texts are anonymous unless otherwise stipulated by the author. But this one I'm going to name because she's your mom.
Oh.
She sends me a message. Ellio's mother sends me a message, says, weather forecast, Austin, God reigns on the just and unjust alike. He just knows which category your district falls under. I want to say, what are you saying here? Am I the unjust? Come now, mother.
Must mean the just.
That's terrible. But it did make me laugh, so thank you very much, Miss Corrine. I got nothing but love for you. But you just wait. I'm going to have you in this studio sooner rather than later.
Yes, we will, actually.
And payback, as you know what they say, well, we won't say it.
We won't say it. It's a B-I-T.
It's a something.
It's something.
It's a something. 55 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock is the time in studios. And maybe now is a good time to sort of at least hint at or welcome our guest in studios, the chap with perhaps one of the best haircuts in the room, none other than our very good friend, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. Good evening to you, my friend.
Buenas tardes, mi amigas.
Wow, look at that.
There's that Spanish interview coming up there.
Say that, man.
And hello to you, too, as well.
He'd been out of sight for a couple of months, and they said, did he quit life and move to the BRAC? No, he quit life to move to the Dominican Republic.
No, man. Let's spend time in West Bay.
You spend time in West Bay. You got to be bilingual over there.
There's quite a few Spanish people there, right?
Yeah. They do call it the Republic nonetheless.
Well, I guess if we had our way, it would be.
Yes. Cut it right off, right there at the entrance of the cemetery. A moat and a bridge.
Nah, man.
A drawbridge at that.
In the spirit of the changing geopolitical landscape, we would annex a few more districts. Add value, man.
Oh, my God. So how you doing, buddy? Long time no speak.
No, man. I'm very thankful. God has been great. And today, as I look at where we are and what we're doing, we give thanks. That always says, you be grateful and gracious.
Yes.
So I'm honored that you would extend the invitation. So thank you both very much for it. Looking forward to, the banter.
Of course.
Well, we had some key personalities in mind as we thought about this, and definitely you were one of them, right?
I said no. Okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. They're waiting in the line. But like I said, you were one of those persons. And of course, we got to really get going as soon as we come back from the break. But at least for now, I know you're no stranger to studios.
Not at all. And by the way, the invitation was extended because we knew if the tables were reversed, you would do the same for us. So believe you me, we got love for you, my brother. We really do. And if Ellio Solomon has anything to do with it, potentially before the end of the week, you can get your old job back because we miss you on Radio Cayman in the afternoon. I got to tell you. Was it 17 years you did that job?
A couple of days, yeah.
A couple of days. Yeah.
But it was 17, right? That's what I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we believe you deserve to be back on the radio. We believe you deserve to and all of the other candidates who put themselves forward for, elected office, whether they were successful or not. These are the persons we should hold up in society. These are the persons with the integrity, with the commitment, so much so that they put themselves forward for the abuse that comes with politics. And coming up after the break, we'll talk a little bit about it. But these are the persons who absolutely deserve to put food on the table, albeit having been in politics. And this nonsense of PEPs, politically exposed persons, is just that, nonsense. And we certainly have challenged the government vis-a-vis my colleague in particular. See, in the absence of me not having a voice, they say when the cat's away, the mice will play. Oh, my God, the last 3 days have been unhinged.
Yeah.
Off the hook, my friend.
Well, I don't want this to come across, the wrong way, but my colleagues over there, he has everything in front of him, as you can see. I mean, the clock, everything. I can't see anything. Every time I go to talk, he says, "Oh, we're out of time."
So it's 30 seconds.
So the last 2 days, he hasn't had a voice. So I got more play. How much time do we have right now, Mr. Harris? By the way,
20 seconds.
You see what I'm talking about? All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have Sterling Dween here in the studio, and when we come back, we're going to be having an Austin interview with him. So don't go away. Keep it locked right here to your favorite station, 103.1 FM, with your two greatest talk show hosts, Austin Harris and Ellio Solomon.
What do you have to add to that? We'll be right back, K-Man.
Bobo.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Eileen McHugh with the BBC News. Canada has become the latest country to announce plans to recognise a Palestinian state. At a press conference in Ottawa, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said the dramatic shift in foreign policy would happen in September as long as the Palestinian Authority carried out democratic reforms and held elections without Hamas.
This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state.
He accused Israel of allowing a catastrophe to unfold in Gaza. In the past week, France has also said it will recognise Palestinian statehood, and Britain has threatened to do so unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire. Donald Trump has stepped up his diplomatic assault on the government of Brazil's left-wing president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. He signed an executive order which brings total tariffs on Brazilian goods to 50%. At the same time, the US Treasury has imposed financial sanctions on the senior Brazilian judge overseeing the criminal case for coup plotting against Brazil's former leader, Jair Bolsonaro. Here's our South America correspondent, Ione Wells.
Not economic. The White House said the 50% tariffs were to address actions harming US companies and the free speech rights of US persons and what it described as Brazil's politically motivated persecution, intimidation, harassment, censorship and prosecution of the former President Jair Bolsonaro, an ally of President Trump. The sanctions on the Supreme Court judge, Alexandre de Moraes, who is leading the investigation of Mr. Bolsonaro, are motivated by the same reasons.
India says it will take all steps necessary to secure its national interest after Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on goods imported from the country, including a penalty for buying oil and weapons from Russia. The Indian government said it was committed to achieving a fair trade agreement with Washington. The US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, has kept interest rates unchanged at 4.25% to 4.5%. The widely expected decision comes despite an unprecedented barrage of criticism from Donald Trump, who wants to see them slashed.
I call him too late. You know, he's always too late. Even if he does it today, probably won't. I hear they're going to do it in September, not today. For what reason? Nobody knows. Europe, as you know, cut their rates 11 times in the last short period of time. But the good news is we're doing better than anybody anywhere in the world. Nobody's doing anything even close to us.
The bank says it wants to see how Mr. Trump's tariff increases and tax cuts will affect the economy before changing rates. This is the World News from the BBC. The tsunami threat from one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded appears to have largely passed, although some Pacific areas are still braced for danger. Chile's tsunami warning is at its highest level. Ecuador's Galapagos Islands have ordered a precautionary evacuation in some areas. Belgium says it's asked the International Criminal Court to look into war crimes accusations against two visiting Israelis. The two unnamed individuals travelled to Belgium for a music festival earlier this month. The accusations against them were made by a Belgium-based pro-Palestinian group. TikTok has removed a video by the businesswoman and beauty influencer Huda Katan in which she promoted conspiracy theories about Israel. In the video, posted to her 1.7 million followers on Sunday, the Iraqi-American accused Israel of being responsible for every world war, as well as the September the 11th attack in 2001. Senior US Democrats are using a little-known law to try to force the release of files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. All 8 of the Democrats on the Senate's Homeland Security Committee have written to the Justice Department asking it to turn over its documents on the disgraced financier. The Epstein saga has bitterly divided House Republicans. Democrats say the latest move is about accountability and not a stunt. Chuck Schumer is the Senate Minority Leader.
The public has a right to know who enabled, knew of, or participated in one of the most heinous sex trafficking operations in history. Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. He broke that promise.
Officials examining a radioactive wasp nest found at a site in the U.S. state of South Carolina, where key parts for nuclear bombs were once made, say it poses no danger. The nest was discovered near tanks storing liquid nuclear waste near the city of Aiken. Tests showed it had radiation levels 10 times those permitted by federal regulations. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome back to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM, broadcasting live on your radio dial and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us streaming live on the ACT Cruise Tourism page on Facebook, just to make it even more convenient for you. The phone lines are temporarily suspended for at least the first half hour as we seek to welcome our very special guest in studios. And if you're just tuning in, well, you will hear a welcome. If you have been with us since the beginning, well, certainly you know this will be the second welcome, given our little few words of banter before we left and went off to the news break just moments ago. But Ellio, I'll turn the microphone over to you to introduce our very good friend to the wider listening audience.
All right. Well, I'll definitely give him a chance to introduce himself. But again, ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure to have here in the studio none other than Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, against a very familiar face and voice in the Cayman Islands, who has made a tremendous contribution via Just Talk Today, in other ways as well, but definitely very well known from Talk Today. And I believe the number is about 17 years he's put in there, quite a few days, quite a few moons. But I want to say, again, Sterling Dwayne, thank you for taking us up on the invite. Thanks for coming in the studio. How are you today?
Again, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully here, our discussion would encourage more of us to get involved in the political landscape. Directly and first and foremost, by if you're eligible, get registered to vote. Once you do that, consider being a part of the political process as a candidate, someone who is involved in electing a candidate or team or however you wish, because it not only allows people to appreciate what the process is like. They get an experience, an exposure, and they get an understanding of what unfolds in this society in a way that you will never, ever get unless you be a part of the political process. It's humbling in a sense, but more importantly, it's enlightening. You get a chance to be invited into people's homes and yards. It's probably a lot similar to what you hear some salespeople will say. They're on the phone and they make cold calls. You think you're, experienced and educated and well-informed, and you may be, but this opportunity affords you a perspective that may be akin to those of us who were enumerators for the ESO when they would do their census and the like. You're going. The difference is, on one hand, you're going with cap in hand. You're going to ask for support. You're also going, if you're genuine, to be, queried, question interrogated almost, right? And you're going to go in on unfamiliar territory, and you should never ever make the mistake to believe that you have that vote from spouse, sibling, or anyone. Never assume that.
Well, I definitely want to drag you through all of this, because we definitely believe, my colleague and I, that, it's one of those noble things that a person can do in terms of running for office. And I think people need to understand as well the sacrifice that the person's making. It's very easy from the outside, if you've never ran and probably have no interest, to just say it's a bunch of people who are running and probably just want to fill their pockets with money. But it is something that you are sacrificing yourself, even if you are elected. And again, kudos even those who are elected, the ones who continue to work, because regardless of whether you're elected or not, it's a sacrifice. And particular of concern for us, my colleague and I, is the fact that you do have those persons who have made that sacrifice, put themselves on the line and weren't successful. And now they're making an even greater sacrifice and facing difficult challenges. And we want, one, to educate the public about those individuals, let them know the story of those persons, why they decided to do it, what were some of the challenges, and again, even the challenges that you're having now, so that, again, that it doesn't discourage people, but they understand the reality, and hopefully it will also change this state of affairs that exists today with the victimization that is evident that takes place. So I guess I'll start with you, Mr. Sterling Dwayne, in terms of asking, there you were on the radio for 17 years, comfortable, obviously, or, the stone didn't move for 17 years. So you were obviously very comfortable. And something, again, triggered you to say, I'm willing to leave this comfortable position to run for office. Tell us what was going through your mind. What were some of the decisions you had to make to finally make that big one
Well, start with that. For me, I wouldn't say comfortable in that sense. Every day going through the program, those who know me closely and intimately understand that I do not like publicity.
You don't?
I don't like the, any of that sort of glory and notoriety, any of that comes with it. So that was a challenge for me. When I introduced cameras, it even became more difficult. And I weighed, hey, should I leave? I love radio, listening to radio. I never wanted to be in the media. The decision by anybody to offer him or herself to serve the country, whether
Well, let me jump in because can I let you slide with that one? I mean, you just said that you didn't intend to really get involved with the radio, and it was not something that you were pursuing. You kind of almost didn't like that direction. Well, how did you get involved?
I think what he was saying was he enjoyed being in radio. He didn't like the natural evolution that radio seems to have undergone to go from radio to radio and TV, the whole video aspect of radio. Am I correct?
Yeah, but you're both correct. In the sense that if Ms. Norma, and I've shared it publicly, I tapped in a couple of times to help her when, they needed a guest host, decades ago. I remember jokingly saying to her, if you can't find anybody fool enough, you're desperate, call me and I'll do it for you. She reminded me.
And she took you seriously.
And it was that particular time of year when most people are away and, either vacation or off island, and she needed somebody in a pinch. And she said, listen, you're my last resort. I'm not doing the show. And if you can't do it, I don't want to cancel it, but the show will have to be. I said, okay, I promise you remind me. And I went on. She's a great leader. She's a great head of department. I remember very vividly. She's sitting across, doing the board, guiding me through this stuff. And there's no guests because there were no hosts lined up.
Right.
And I walked in. She walked me through it. The caller called in. And one of the questions that he was asking was some uproar about what was then the builder's bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did I know about it? And I said, well, just from, cursory read the media. He put question to me. I said, well, I'm committed to come back tomorrow. I'll
search it out. Yeah.
I'll go this evening after and down to LA, buy a copy of the legislation, read it, come back and share with you what I think.
Yeah.
That was just my opinion, right?
Yeah, sure.
Next day I came back and did that. And the guy said, you doing that? I said, yeah, but I gave you my word, right?
Sure.
And to me, that was what you do. And I think what may have transpired then was just like everything we do, we volunteer, let's do it with sincerity, no ulterior motives. Then until, the application was open for a host, I applied. Like anybody else, I had an opportunity. It ended up that I was the best candidate and selected. My intent and objective was always to facilitate, never to pontificate, never to make it about me. It didn't mean I didn't have an opinion, but what it meant was that it challenges you sometimes, as I shared. The greatest exercise of power is restraint. But you fast forward almost 2 decades later to where you see the direction of your country. You see the populace, and in particular the electorate. And I'm not beating up on voters, but I'm asking voters to be mindful of the awesome opportunity, but also responsibility to be actively engaged in the political process. And we point fingers at politicians and condemn them for things, right? And it may be justified, but we elected them. And in the absence of some sort of, corrupt electoral system, we have to take responsibility for going to the polls and electing the people.
Right.
So we just can't elect and leave them. We need to get engaged. Where I would like to see us now is consider whether the national vote, as I've always championed from the very first days of those constitutional commissioners from afar, to when we appointed our own, to the new constitution. The one man, one vote, the one elector, that's not anywhere near parity equality of voters. One elector in a constituency of 1,000 versus one elector in a constituency of 500 doesn't have the same weighted average vote, right? You may have one vote. But what are you doing to the elected person who is now elevated to cabinet? I said that during the election. I still say it now. We need to consider it as we advance our constitution or electoral process. Is it about ensuring greater participation in democracy? To the points that we have heard many, many times that may have seriously discouraged many in offering themselves is the victimization, the intimidation, the fear alone, no matter how confident you are, of going to people's homes, politically getting on the stage.
Being rejected in some way.
Being rejected, being sometimes, so beaten that you... But it's a sense that we should be reminded of the scripture, humility before honor, right? And so if we can do any and everything possible to encourage more and more of us to get involved, then that's better. The party system does nothing more than loyalty to the party. I want loyalty to the country. Or we see discussions in the UK, and I think, or in England anyway, and I think, is it Ireland? They're talking about reducing the age of, the elected to 16. Some might say yes, but if we're going to do that, let's also reduce the age of the person who can be elected. Now it's 18 to vote and 21 to stand for election. The two should be one and the same, right? So if you're going to reduce it, if that's the discussion, any point, make it the same, because what they say, you gotta say, if you don't have to give a lick, you don't take one. Let's make it fair, right? But let's also consider how we can participate more in the process. In the what do they call those people that came over and observers and cost money and wasted time? When sat down and said to one asked, the candidates assembled, oh, well, what about women and, are women being openly discouraged and whatever? With respect to them, it's an insensitivity to the political landscape in Cayman. Our women who get involved in politics are championed and encouraged as much as anybody else. If there are impediments to anybody getting involved in the process, let's make sure that we remove them for all and sunder, right? And the husbands and the brothers and the fathers and the uncles and any and every man that is involved in the life of a woman will stand with her to encourage her to be a part of the electoral process, to get elected and to support, to ensure that, she serves in that role.
Correct.
And so whatever may transpire in other jurisdictions, we don't have that here. So let's not import more problems for our people.
Correct. So I'm sitting and doing the math. 17 years you said on the radio. That's about 4 terms. And you're listening to the public. You had the politicians coming on. I want to try, is it an accumulation of things? And when did you make up your mind that you were going to run? And how did you decide that you were going to run in West Bay South?
Okay, fair enough. Covered the 2009 general election, the 13, the 17, the 21, right? So in covering those election cycles and having the returns, and all those years, Cayman has some amazing things that are uniquely Caymanian, and we do not celebrate. In fact, we allow people to denigrate, disrespect, sometimes just openly discard. But our politicians can walk freely amongst us. We as the populace and electors in particular take advantage of that to an extent that we don't understand how important that is. So instead of begging them for $50 or pay whatever, use that time constructively, right? The politicians will take responsibility for that and start pandering to that as well. But when you are elected, probably no different than in some voluntary social service or similar role where you see that need and you recognize that, you want to help. You're your brother's keeper. Over that time, I have managed, just like when you guys were elected, to genuinely develop good friendships, good working relationships. I've always said, I don't seek the power, the position, the pay, nor the prestige. But we all want to be instrumental, instructive, and to positively help to transform the country so that the direction we go benefits all of us, especially as our parents age and we come to that age, or our children, come along as well. What I want is the political cycle to mature where that perception of victimization and intimidation that occurs, both from the elected towards those who were formerly elected and no longer got back the seat, for those who tried and failed, or those who considered. But it also should extend to the private sector now, because many private sector employers openly discourage their employees
from running.
They actively, sometimes, undermine the process. That's not democracy. And if one person speaks out, and like the whack-a-mole, right, and the next person does it, eventually nobody will speak out. There are some of us who maybe we got courage, maybe too fool. That doesn't phase us to an extent. There has to be a level of responsibility, respectability, and respectfulness when we approach the whole process. And when we look at it now, with respect to both you and the current MP for Georgetown Central, who was also a talk show host, it's not because you're a talk show host that some of them align and say, oh, you think now you know the problems of the country and that gives you popularity and to be elected. It's about a recognition of what you see happen. The two of you, when you were on the rooster way back when, you were there for a day as well, right? And you saw what was unfolding in the country. You recognized that it took courage to stand up, speak up, and try to influence things in a way that helped the country. I believe our politicians genuinely want to do that. Do they have political capital and a political will? Do they see what needs to be done and willing to do it, knowing that potentially it'll be unpopular, but it's necessary. It's not sufficient. And I think it's absolutely disrespectful when we say to somebody, oh, I was only saying, telling you the truth. It may be the truth, but are we telling the truth to hurt someone? There's a way to deliver the truth in a loving, nurturing, caring, considerate way, right? And then it's not just what you say and how you say it. Mm-hmm. The problem is compounded that in today's world, it's my truth, your truth, and the next truth. Really? If those three things aren't the same, they can't be the truth. At least not all three of them. They can all three be lies. We need to hold each other accountable, but we also have to be willing to accept responsibility as parents and spouses, as children and siblings, and as electors. And the country seems to be maybe thinking whether that's optional. It's not. You cannot move a country in a positive direction without making that investment. We say sacrifice. I've taken on board the word sometime back and decided, for my own parlance, to use the word investment. I'm making this investment in this thing. It comes with a significant cost, financial and personal, but it's not about what you get out of it. It's what you bring to it. No different than going to church. You can offer your praise and worship, and you can benefit from the sermon. But how are you entering the sanctuary? Right? When you come home from work and you face your family, and you bring in all the baggage, and you can't wait to offload and just give everybody in the household a headache? Or are you trying to find a way to come home and say, well, you know what? But the reception that you meet when you come home through those doors, the child from school, the parent from work, would also inform how the household's energy, so to speak.
Well, speaking of the household, tell us about that, because to the best of my knowledge, I know you're married, or at least I remember you being married.
Are you proposing? I just checked.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I don't think between us and them we can afford the ring.
I'll tell you that. Sure. We knew the man.
Even though I accuse him of having $52 million in the bank, but tell us about your home situation, and I mean, how was everything in terms of you wanting to run? How did that impact the household?
There is always a cost and a consequence to all we do, investment to otherwise. When you have support of those closest to you, if you're married, your spouse, if you got children, whether they're adults with their own families or whether they're quite young and you're not quite sure yet, that they're still in single digits, or whether you're, retired. You got your parents, you got your siblings, you got close friends. That support is crucial. It can help to ground you. It can help to distract you. It can sadly, take away, because in this community, we like Mr. Jimmy Powell, I think a great man in this nation, right, shared that if you're in politics in particular, be cognizant that whatever's in your closet will come out. If there's nothing there, they're fabricated, right?
Mm-hmm. They'll put it there.
And for me, I try my best to walk in a way that, you know, I don't always achieve what I set out to do. I know what's important to me as my personal ethos. And there are challenges that we face constantly. But the question is, to what extent do we try to learn from our missteps? How do we improve what we're doing as a football player? Do we get better at the game by practicing and trying to master that skill? Our jobs, can we learn more so that we can apply what we know in a better way for the customer and for the company? You know?
Well, I know you started telling us about the trail, and I know that we have to go to a break, but when we come back, I definitely want to pick up on the trail as well. Sorry, Mr. Harris.
No problem. I was going to say we have about a minute left, and just very quickly, though, you spent 17 years as a facilitator, bringing voters closer to those who they represent and bringing those who are representing closer to those who voted for them or didn't vote for them. This time, for whatever reason, you decided to throw your hat into the ring. Very quickly, with 30 seconds or less, what was your experience like? Was it everything you hoped for or feared for, or were there some nuances that were brand new?
I think if you speak to people who did it the time before, the approach this time was different. There was a greater voter apathy. That was probably indicative of the low voter turnout. There are also people who I've questioned are becoming fearful of the veracity of politicians' comments. They question the mechanisms of the political machinations. But more importantly, are we now concerned as to what happens?
We're going to pick it up when we come back.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart Insurance. Shirts, pants, or linens. When you want them clean, just drop them off at Island Cleaners. Island Cleaners is a full-service dry cleaner, meaning you name it, they clean it. Professional shirt service, fluff and fold laundry, and more. Even drape and area rug cleaning and alterations, from quick hem jobs to resizing dresses. Island Cleaners, your one stop for everything clean. Artco Drive off Shedden Road. Ask about VIP and prepaid discounts.
When it comes to cooking for my family, I turn to Kirk Market for all our nutritional needs. Whether whipping up a quick stir fry with lean CAB choice beef or preparing a healthy weekend dinner with fresh local snapper, Kirk Market always has exactly what I need. At Kirk Market, I find premium proteins that keep my family healthy, energetic, and always coming back for seconds. Visit Kirk Market today. Bring home the quality and freshness your family deserves. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and experience a world of choice.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
We just don't understand how you could afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shedden Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
It's trivia every Wednesday from 7 o'clock at Sandbar on the Georgetown waterfront. Your chance to win some fantastic prizes in our free-to-enter Trivia Madness. Great offers on beer buckets, margaritas, and a delicious menu served throughout the evening. Grab your pals and get along to Sandbar every Wednesday from 7 o'clock for the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Are we ready?
Yes, mommy!
Then let's do this. Trivia, Sandbar, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. See you there.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM as we continue our discussion on the Candidates Forum, Life After the Campaign Trail. If you're just tuning in, our guest in studio is none other than our very good friend Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, who ran in the constituency of West Bay South for the first time, but not after giving it much thought. And as we were asking prior to the break, obviously 17 years on the radio, facilitating conversation, I dare say facilitating intellectual thought and growth, facilitating a connectivity between voter and representative, but also promoting an appreciation for the culture and things that make up the wider community. You decided in 2025 to put your hat into the ring. Was it everything you thought it would be, or even for you, the great strategic planner who plans, as they always say, measure twice and cut once? Well, anybody knows Sterling Dwayne, he measured 3-4 times just to make sure his cut is that precise. Was it even for that great strategist, were there even moments that perhaps may have surprised you in your experience, Mr. Sterling?
Austin, as I look at it, I believe it's important to plan. You can plan and prepare. A friend of mine says her daughter reminds her that if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. And for me, it's very simple. I endeavor to be as sincere and genuine as I can. There are no ulterior motives. I have no desire for anything in terms of public accolades. As you were sharing earlier, it's part of why when I looked at the opportunity to do this, I do it willingly with an open heart and a sincerity. Now that may come across to some as naive, but it isn't any hidden agendas. The approach, if you're calculating to look at the probability of being elected, you may decide to align with certain factions, or you may completely disassociate yourself. For me, it's about serving in the best way possible. And the opportunity to contest the seat this time around hopefully would have encouraged more people to understand the importance, Ellio's word, to make the sacrifice, to make the investment, to make that commitment, to get engaged and involved and informed, and now to insist that the government of the day do something that is provided for in our Constitution. Bring the district councils in play, not appointed by the political directorate of the day, but for us as the voters in that area. Let's advance that so that we get rid of the stupid, ignorant, nonsensical thing. And those are harsh words, and there are others that I would use if my mom wasn't listening, all right? Of this, divided, chipped up and chopped up nonsense of 19 little bits and pieces. House divided can't stand. But that might be a good thing, or it might not, as I think. But let's have the conversation to find what is better, so that we bring a greater sense of participation, that we increase the idea of this democracy being one that is as all-encompassing as possible, so that the elected has a body, like district council, one for West Bay, one for Georgetown, right? We don't need to have 4 in West Bay and, 1,000 in Georgetown and 15 in the Camarac, right? And what does that do for governance? We look at what we have, district administration. Why is that only for the Sister Islands? There are districts on Grand Cayman. Maybe as we look at the civil service machinery. Now, I have always seen myself as a public servant. I always said very, very, very early in life, an educator reminded me to say as a student, I always said that I'm a public servant, elected or appointed. I would like to participate in the process. But I'm not a politician. I don't envy what we expect the politicians to do. We want them to be not just our referees and our job placement officers or social workers. They want us to marry and bury. We want so much from them. If they're doing all those things, when are they getting about the business of running the country, helping to formulate our policies, helping to ensure that the laws that are implemented or the amendments thereto are effective? And when we complain about the special interests, well, they're organized. Where are we as voters, as citizens? If each of us, right, get engaged in our schools where our students, our children, that may be very effective as we would if we get involved with our churches. Let's do the same for our communities. If we look at the changing landscape, not just the political landscape, but the socioeconomic landscape in this country, the change population demographic, is this a Cayman that we recognize? And is this a Cayman that we want 10, 50 years from now?
Speaking of that changing and or evolving landscape, whether politically or socioeconomically, taking us back to the campaign itself, with the campaign in your rear view, do you still believe now after the fact that your decision to run as an independent, a lone wolf, as the case may be, versus perhaps joining either a team or a party, do you think being an independent helped you or hurt you?
I think both. And I don't believe that when we look at things that we should look with regret. We can analyze it and, given an opportunity, learn from it and hopefully improve the next iteration of whatever that is, either for yourself or, for somebody else. Ideally, I would have loved to have done what I had initially intended, is to be an active part of other individuals' endeavors to put themselves forward. Because in my estimation, they're better politicians. They like the publicity. They love the lifestyle. I don't, right? Having to do it over again, sure, you learn from what you did. Doing it another time, I would certainly make some adjustments. But I don't want us to focus and believe that formulating a party system like we have been trying is the answer for this country. If anything, it's probably going to divide us further.
Now, interesting you say that, because if you talk to the average voter, either before the last election or even today, they will say that they are against the party system, but yet they seem to support these groupings, these collections of personalities, more so than perhaps they do the lone individual pushing themselves forward as the independent. And my question to you, as, again, somebody who went through the gauntlet, what's the difference between the party system as we once knew it and this now collection of personalities that seems to be the new evolution to the political landscape?
I think first observation, we would question whether it's an anomaly. But if we look perhaps more closely, what we're seeing is that at the end of the day, people are electing people based on personality and perception. We want a semblance of cohesion and unity. We want some level of certainty. But we also want the elected parliamentarian to put the interests of the country first, above self, certainly above party. Now, when we look at what unfolded in the last election, sadly, some media outlets, I think, are trying to push a narrative. And again, and if it's harsh, you guys are invited to openly, publicly castigate me for saying it this way.
We won't.
But some media outlets wanted to say, oh, that experiment with the, in independence, that failed experiment. That was not an experiment and it wasn't a failure. What it is that some of us lack the Constitution to stand on principle. And when certain things are dangled before us, we get ooh and ah and become seduced by it. Public service requires a level of commitment, as we all know. And it's no different than taking on a role of parenting, whether that's biological, adopted, fostered, or otherwise. You have to be that individual that is nurturing, caring, and loving, kind. But at the end of the day, you have to be an individual that's going to do the right thing, right? You take the interests of the child on board, but you can't allow the child to parent him or herself, and you can't allow the child to decide in every circumstance. Simple example, the child needs to bathe. Now you can choose to go to bathe now, or you can go in a half an hour, but you're going to go bathe, right? At some point, the child will understand the importance because you've explained it. We believe in following a lot of nonsense these days, and as a consequence, we're seeing the societal decay. That is
without a doubt. I'd like to first say that on the issue about the media, I think the same media also would have said that the independent issue was an experiment, was one of the persons pushing for the country to experience it, right? When they're the one behind it, I think they were the one behind it. But that said, you mentioned something interesting, and that was the issue about the sacrifices and stuff like that, and the fact that you keep saying you're not really much of the politician, and I think I know where you're going with that. But are you suggesting then that the public tends to get dazzled and vote in that favor as opposed to really analyzing the candidate and say, hey, this particular candidate is not jazzy, not doing X, Y, and Z, but have the substance and the desire to serve?
I think that there is that dazzle and that glam and glitter that comes. I don't think that was as evident this time around. I think a lot of the public meetings were not as well attended as they were in previous elections for different reasons. I believe that in the 19 sort of electoral districts, you may have heard many, especially since the elections, many of the voters in those areas lament that in their area, they had more than one possible option. Others would say, well, I've got 3, 4, 5, 6 or however many voting, but I'm struggling to find, the best one.
A good one.
Right? A good one, put it that way, right? And so that's why I believe that if we change how we elect people, it would allow greater participation. Not voters at large, as some would suggest. Right? Let's be mindful of the terminology and the labels that we assign to it. But let's look at how we can ensure level of district participation and representation, but also even if we are at 100,000 people in this country, or we end up, as some statistical projections would indicate, we could be at soon 3, 4, 500,000. Growth being at the pace it was to date. That's still a small number of people, but still relatively manageable. Let's use that opportunity and let's benefit from what is uniquely Cayman, in that our people are engaged and involved. They want to be informed. They are willing to give you, as the elected person, almost every latitude to do the right thing. And you may believe that they're not paying attention. And when the polls, are taken at the next election, you're probably the only one that's surprised whether you're elected or not. we want the elected representative, the parliamentarian, to do what is in the best interest of the country. We are allowing certain things to transpire because, maybe in business terms, there's a little bit of leakage. But we expect a semblance, right, of public service to push the country first. And we've been fortunate to date to have that. Now, what may transpire in the Cayman sort of agenda as a consequence of what's happening globally may, to some people, be beyond our control. But it doesn't have to be totally beyond our control.
So, for clarity, you think that people are getting proper service from their elected officials?
I think that if we look at those who are re-elected, then it would be indicative. If we looked at the statistical profile, we should question that in many instances. But what I think we're failing to ask is it a way for us to get more out of the elected official? And if so, how? And when we are willing to castigate some because we ourselves don't understand the process, or when we're willing to further entrench this one man, one vote, where you can end up being elected with a very, very small percentage, right? Are you really representative? So if you got 4 people running against you, and between the 4 of them, they've got collectively a greater percentage than you, the elected person, but you just happen to have more than the other 4 individually, you're elected. Do you see that as a win, or do you see that now you have a large percentage, but for whatever reason, didn't pick you?
Well, I completely agree with you from the standpoint of single-member constituencies. I've never supported that. I think it just creates more division, and I don't think it's definitely what persons try to hack it up to be. But again, I think that was also a bit of a foreign influence as well. You talked about district councils, and I want to ask, so are you saying that you believe that we should have district councils? And if so, are you suggesting that those are also areas where persons that have run or want to run in the future should be able to reside and perform?
I believe all of the residents in that particular district, right? Not the individual political constituency, but in that district, as we know our districts, should be eligible to participate. Now, we can formulate the criteria, right? And let's be as open and inclusive as possible, because whatever happens in the country affects us all, some to much sooner and to a great extent than others, but in the district in particular. And it doesn't have to be a political sort of machinery. It can and should attract those who would want to be a part of the political process. And it may evolve in that sense. It shouldn't be driven, appointed by parliamentarians. It shouldn't in any way be for them to dictate the composition or its functioning. If anything, if you want democracy, maybe it should be a means by which that representative for that district
can offer a respectful counter.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: Do you think that because that's unfortunately not what happens, but do you believe? Because I know you alluded to the victimization, and I know I got to pull it from you. I think my friend was talking about something to do with dentists earlier on. I have to turn into a dentist here, Adrien.
Right ahead, man.
So, do you feel that the system here in Cayman, do you think that there is a lot of victimization that takes place here in Cayman?
I think that there has been a growing perception of such. I think that there has been much talk, and there have been many who experienced it. Mm-hmm. I will say this to you now. As I move forward, I want my direction to be positive. If I encounter, this is not a threat, this is said with the greatest love and respect, anything from anybody in any way, shape, or form that somehow hinders my ability to protect and provide for my own, I'm not going to sit quietly. I've done that before, because we're told that we're passive. In order to, exist, then you just accept. That's BS. Now, I don't want anybody to extend any concession to me that is undeserving. Right? I pray for favor for me and my friends and family and children and the like. And if you see me and you say, hey, let me help you with this, out of the kindness of your heart, I welcome and I appreciate that. And if you do something for me, I'd like to know that you do it for somebody else. But do not look at me because I'm this, that, or the next thing and believe that you're going to put the screws to me. That different side of me you won't want to see, right? Now, we have to love and help and include, invite, involve as much as possible, ensure that our people are able to live in a society that's safe, right? And not only is there a sense of civility, but our personal security has to be ensured. And we have to question whether that is happening.
Yeah, but if we speak frankly about victimization, it's not something that people are necessarily going to see. You're not going to see the persons who are victimizing you. People are going to do that in the dark. But at the end of the day, it still has an effect. I mean, let's just say you have a person, and especially if it's an elected official or even a media person. But if that person can speak viciously, let's say, about a person publicly, well, only God could imagine what would happen privately. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, the person who seeks to victimize Sterling Dween and or his family or anybody else isn't going to do so overtly, or a very slim chance of it.
Right.
So we have to naturally take cues from many different angles in order to see what is actually taking place.
Right. As I hear you, right, there are instances globally, but let's focus right here within our own shores, where people use their positions, whether it's media or whether it's someone appointed or elected, or whether it's a private sector or public, and they will make it difficult for others. That's where we as a country need to ensure that that's not something that we tolerate. But there are also people who, for that time being, because of that position, believe that they can advance their own interests at the expense of others. We should not tolerate that either. And so as we look at public pronouncements by individuals against somebody else, if they're untrue, and I'm pretty sure that it's still the case, defamation is a criminal offense in this country, all right?
Well, it's a civil offense.
No, it's a criminal offense.
And the problem with defamation is that it's not always practical, because, and especially if you're a person who is in office or even has ran for office,
right,
and especially if you have even some access to the media, it becomes very, very difficult.
Right. But as you said, we look at defamation as something that only enforceable when a person in a civil suit brings it against somebody who is. Now, the beautiful part of that is that if what the person said, no matter how malicious, right, no matter how, much vitriol, if it's true, then that's the best defense, right? But there should also be inculcated within us, and something that we had and we have lost, is that semblance of public respect and decorum, where someone knows something about someone, and if said publicly, would be very, maligning. Even though it's truthful, we exercise a certain level of deportment and didn't do so. Now that's out the window. But we also at risk of questioning whether that's even now gone further and maybe adopting practices from other jurisdictions where we use our podium and platform from the pulpit, right, to the pew, and openly castigate others, knowing that it is to somehow intimidate them or create such a castigated version of that person that they now are so maligned that...
Make them some persona non grata.
Yeah, what they say, wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. Right?
Yeah.
And this is where I think when we look, we recognize that many of us self-censor. We think, I would like to do something, but boy, I'm not sure. There are those of us who, whether, as I joked earlier, is courage or ignorance, we see wrong and injustice and we won't accept it. And so we get involved. Right? There needs to be more of us that are willing to do just that.
But precisely, and in order for us to do something about it, we have to recognize it and be willing to speak up. And this is one of the concerns that I have, because no one can tell me that we're living in a society right now where we can't see it occurring every day, when persons are going to be using themselves as an instrument in order to tear other persons down.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that the person isn't given a fair trial. You're not giving the person an opportunity. You just spew something as if it's the truth.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, as a society, we accept that.
Why? Why do we?
I think that this is where it has to go beyond the word of perception, and we have to recognize it for what it is and be courageous enough to say, it's wrong.
So how do we do that?
By just starting to speak up about it.
Right. And this is where I want us now as a country, whether it's across the board. Look at the driving on our roads, right? We cast to get the Honda Fit. It doesn't drive itself. It's not the car, it's the person. If we have now said that there are many vehicles on the road that are not licensed, nor insured, nor driven by people with a valid driver's license, why are we accepting that, right? If we blame the policing apparatus for failing to do its job, well, are they the reason for it? But what about the rest of us? What about our personal ethos? How many of us would actually get into a car and drive it knowing that we're not qualified to drive it, it's not licensed or insured? There's a time when we didn't do that, right? Has that changed? And if so, why? We're not asking people to police us. If we allow professions, medical profession, for instance, to police itself, why can't we do the same as a community?
Powerful conversation, and one, unfortunately, I hate to interrupt, but we do have to pause and take a short commercial break, check in with the top of the hour news. To our listeners, the phone lines are now open at 745-2626. By all means, be a part of this delightful, informative, and frankly, frank conversation with former political candidate Sterling Dwayne Eubanks. From a public service standpoint, we seem to be having a major power outage from South Church Street all the way up to Spots. Hopefully, you're still connected. We'll be back.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News. World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News, hello, I'm Eileen McHugh. Canada has become the latest Western power to announce plans to recognise a Palestinian state. The Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said the dramatic policy shift would happen in September as long as the Palestinian Authority carried out democratic reforms and held elections without Hamas. David Willis reports.
citing the expansion of settlements in the occupied West Bank and what he called Israel's ongoing failure to prevent a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Mark Carney said the possibility of a two-state solution was being eroded before our eyes. Canada's announcement follows similar declarations by France and the UK, although Mr. Carney said it was predicated on the Palestinian Authority holding elections in which Hamas was not a part.
Israel has condemned the move. President Trump has stepped up his diplomatic assault on the government of Brazil's left-wing president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. He's signed an executive order which brings total tariffs on Brazilian goods to 50%. It follows an announcement from the U.S. Treasury imposing financial sanctions on the senior Brazilian judge overseeing the criminal case for coup plotting against Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro. Here's our South America correspondent, Ione Wells.
On the upside for President Lula, in a similar vein to the left in Canada earlier this year, he's enjoyed a bit of an opinion poll bounce as a result of Trump's tariff threats. He's even taken to wearing a blue cap, not that dissimilar a font to Trump's Make America Great Again cap, but his says Brazil belongs to Brazilians. So he's sort of made something of this defiance, really. He's saying that he won't back down, that he won't be intimidated by Donald Trump's threats.
The U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, has kept interest rates unchanged at 4.25% to 4.5%. The widely expected decision comes despite an unprecedented barrage of criticism from Donald Trump against the Fed and its chairman, Jerome Powell. The president wants to see rates slashed. Erin Delmore reports.
In regards to that criticism that President Trump launches about Powell being too late, well, what Powell says is that there are risks to acting too early or too late on interest rates. He says that if they act too early, there's a chance that inflation or higher elevated prices could become stickier or more enduring. If acting too late, then we could see some harm to the labor market. And that's the line that the Fed is trying to toe here. He spent a lot of time today in his press conference talking about the Fed's dual mandate, exactly that, keeping prices in check and also maximum employment in the United States.
The former U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has announced she will not run for governor of California next year. She said she decided against doing so after a period of deep reflection. It means the door remains open for the Democrat to make another run for the White House in 2028. World News from the BBC. The tsunami threat from one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded appears to have largely passed, although some Pacific areas are still braced for danger. Several South American nations have issued warnings and advisories. Chile's tsunami warning is at its highest level for much of its Pacific coastline. Ecuador's Galapagos Islands have ordered a precautionary evacuation in some areas. Belgium says it's asked the International Criminal Court to look into war crimes accusations against two visiting Israelis. The two unnamed individuals, one an Israeli soldier and the other a civilian, travelled to Belgium for a music festival earlier this month. The accusations against them, which haven't been revealed in detail, were made by a Belgium-based pro-Palestinian group. Senior U.S. Democrats are using a little-known law to try to force the release of files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Democrats on the Senate's Homeland Security Committee have asked the Justice Department to turn over documents on the disgraced financier. Here's Namia Iqbal.
The Jeffrey Epstein case has become a key test for President Donald Trump and his ability to contain the demand for transparency by his usually loyal base. Democrats are trying to capitalize on the fallout. A group of senators announced their plans to use a rare law known as the Rule of Five. It requires government agencies to provide information if at least 5 members of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee demands it. Democrats say it isn't a stunt, but about accountability. The ongoing pressure on Mr. Trump comes after the Justice Department said there was no evidence that Epstein had blackmailed prominent figures.
More than 7 decades after a group of bronze jars were discovered in an ancient Grecian shrine near Pompeii, scientists say the sticky substance inside has finally been identified as honey. Previous investigations of the residue, which had been preserved in darkness for 2,500 years, concluded it was animal or vegetable fat. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook as we continue our discussion with former political candidate for West Bay South, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, asking him what lessons have been learned. And of course, the big question, what happens next? The phone lines are open at 745-2626. If you want to be a part of the conversation, by all means, we would love to hear from you. Likewise, if talking isn't your thing, you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp line, 928-2562. And from there, you can share either a traditional text message or a WhatsApp audio note. And as my colleague has been reminding us throughout the week, you can also send us a traditional SMS text message, and we would love to hear from you likewise. We do have one caller on the line. I just want to say that, again, we seem to be having a major power outage in the district of Georgetown proper. Apparently, a transformer has blown at the Prospect substation. CUC crews are working diligently to restore power to affected customers, but we have power outages being reported from as far away as South Church Street, all the way down to Spots Newlands. That encompasses Prospect and all of Tropical Gardens. So if you're in these affected areas, CUC is aware of it. And as I said, they are working diligently to resolve it. As both guests have their headsets on, let's go to the phone lines. Oh, didn't stick around. 745-2626 is the number. Ellio, I believe you had some messages that also came in. Oops, I see a call coming back. Let's go to the phone lines first. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
We're very well, ma'am. Thank you, and yourself.
Well, I was kind of a little bit under the weather because I've been done root canal on Monday and they were killing me, but thank God I'm pretty good now. They prescribe antibiotic, but boy, I didn't know root canal could do that because I had to before, and then I would done me that, but I tell them I wasn't as old as I is now, so like I tell you, I don't feel old, but I guess my body parts wearing out, so they say my parts expire and they're wearing out, so I guess, but I feel better. She sent some antibiotics and stuff, and then some painkillers, and I even had to wear chills last night because I didn't know, and my whole mouth was hurting.
But anyway, our prayers are with you and hoping for a speedy recovery.
Oh, yeah, and what happened, I didn't eat from Monday, see, because I'm not eating person in the morning, and I had this appointment in the morning, and then I couldn't eat after that, and then I had gas, felt like somebody had a cement block or a rock up in my stomach, and I couldn't get that, but so, Lord, I walk all night till morning, but thank God I feel better. I prayed and whatever, but I wanted to say to Mr. Sterling, good evening, we need you back on Radio. Okay, man, I miss you a lot. Not the same without you there.
Thank you very much for that love. You know, that comes to the song is one thing to be gone, but not
you need to go back, man.
Yeah, we working and see if the government will put their money where their mouth and then put him back.
Because he been there long enough. In
17 years.
Well, this is it. Not because he used to run for politics. I guess I call them tricks. Because they're not they're not politics. There's politics. Tricking the people, but of course, I guess he was too good. They didn't want him, so that's how it goes. They say, good people is who gets the good team. So, but then they should give him his job back because he's a Caymanian.
I agree with you 100% on that.
I don't see nothing wrong with that. And then, like I say, he was a good person. Now, different if he was, wasn't doing his duties and stuff. But he was one of the best that they had on there. I don't want to bash nobody, but I prefer him to one person. Not one person that on there because they kind of bias, they like to insult you and stuff. That's why I don't call them much. But Mr. Sterling didn't used to do that. He used to listen to you. But
well,
he
thank
always
you for
had
that.
a bias, whatever. And this ganja boy, he be on that. I won't tell him today, but this boy, he gonna promote that because he smokes it, because that's why he get banned off of another show, because by the time he come on, that's all he want to talk about. He's something like Elvis McGee. All out of his mouth is marijuana.
All right. Well, thank you very much, caller. And again, we do hope you feel better soon.
Indeed.
Ellio, you had some messages there.
Yeah, I definitely got a message here on Facebook I think is for you. What does Mr. Ebanks think about the division always popping up with our elected officials and why they can't deliver as per their manifesto before election comes around?
I think that's probably part, and thanks for that. Yeah.
So I guess there's two, just for clarity. I mean, I think what I'm inferring is the division is on the breaking up of the various groups, and then of course it's a matter of delivering on manifestos.
Yeah, but to the caller earlier, thanks for the love and support, and I do miss, and I appreciate the recognition that I try to facilitate. It's never about any hidden agendas, right? But to the messenger there that you read, that's one of the challenges that we have, and I think is for the, exacerbated by the party system, right? And the people elected trying to find, a way to get ahead at each other's expense, as opposed to working for the best of the country. There's nothing wrong with having ambition, and if you aspire as a politician to be, what we call the chief minister, the premier, that's fine. But Scripture says, how should it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? And if we are openly encouraging that, so that the person at the end of the day, I think earlier it was said by, one of the few of us here present, and I exclude myself, so that it seems that many people look at things now and they only consider what's in it for them. When we are in a space of public service, it's about contributing, not just taking. My dad always reminded us, life is like a piggy bank. If you keep taking, at some point, no matter the accumulated wealth in that piggy bank, it's going to end. You're going to be, making your
put something in sometime.
And you can't wait until you get to a certain age or stage to make that contribution. As you go along, you contribute. And too many of us these days aren't contributing in any way. And when we do, it's probably an ulterior motive. And so if we can rethink where we are in a society, if we can inculcate that ethos that we once had, it'll change it. It was what attracted, people to the country, either to invest, to visit, to come and live. If you're offended by the statement, then, maybe look in the mirror. But money can't buy class, right? Just because you can rub two pennies together, don't make it nobody. There are wonderful people who have lots and lots of money. You know it or you don't know it. There are wonderful people who struggle with health, with their finances, but you wouldn't know their struggles because of, who they are, the way they present themselves. So money can't buy class. And we got some people here that, God forbid. Anyway, Mr. Solomon.
No, it's fine. And one of the authors here says, people are afraid to speak up because of victimization instead of voicing their opinions with fear, I guess meant perhaps without fear. But I think it is so important, and I think it starts with those persons who, for the want of a better term, because not that we're in love with the term influencers, but persons who have some level of influence. And my colleagues talked about the churches, we talked about a myriad of different institutions and persons, particularly those, I think, until we can be honest and be willing to audaciously speak up and say, listen, there is victimization in this country. I mean, I've had persons talk to me and tell me some things that it's just crazy. And I can talk about things that I've seen, and I can talk about things that other persons who have been in those positions see as well. And we know it, and it's gotten to the point now where you have people even writing and saying, but doesn't everyone do that? Almost as if that's acceptable. Well, I just shot someone in the head, so did 30 other people, so what's the problem with shooting people in the head? that's kind of a sick mentality. But I think, and one of the things about bringing the candidates on here is because I want you to understand, I may not push, or someone may not push someone in the pool. They may not hold them down and drown them. But if you see someone drowning and you stand there and watch them drowning, you're a problem as well. And I see our leadership at the minimum not reaching out to the persons that I know have made that sacrifice. And I highlight it. You see, because sometimes people, when they hear a talk show host criticizing someone else, but that's them, not me. But why want you to understand, if you watching this person drowning and these persons doing nothing, you really think it's going to be different when it comes to you?
We are our brother's keeper.
And so you think we need to speak about it. Yes, absolutely. We need to be our brother's keeper.
We do have a comment coming in from the WhatsApp line. This is in the form of a WhatsApp audio note. Let's take it now.
Good evening, Austin, Ellio, and my good friend, Mr. Sterling. Sterling, these issues sometimes don't always work out the first or the second time, but maybe God has got a plan for you either in politics or in something else, and that's all I can say about that. I just want to comment a little bit about the issue of victimization in Cayman. The problem with victimization is that it does exist among Caymanians. I have experienced it myself personally. I've also experienced it being perpetrated on people who I worked with. But the problem with that, you see, is that when you are victimized, there is nobody ultimately who will protect you. I can tell you, for example, that when I was in the portfolio of legal affairs, I didn't want to get into this Jamaican Caymanian thing sometimes that flares up from time to time. I offered to train a Caymanian, and I have a good background in training, okay? And I offered to train the person. I was told by status holders who are now in charge in that portfolio, they said, no, you are going to train a Caymanian. Who do you think you are? So I was not allowed to train anybody. Then I said, okay, fine. I'm happy to train people in the civil service about how to work on legislation, because politicians as well as chief officers don't know how to work on legislation. There's never been such training in Cayman. I wrote a little book, and I wrote PowerPoints, I had binders and so on to try and train. Again, they told me, they said, no, you can't train these, you can't train anybody. And then from that point on, I now became a target as well. Suddenly now my work was not good and so on and so forth. Eventually I was forced to leave the portfolio of legal affairs. But did any Caymanian politician come to my side to say, hey, look, this guy came to our country to come and help us. Why are you victimizing him? No. Everybody just kept quiet. And what I got to know in the Cayman Islands, even among politicians, there are certain issues that they don't want to take on. Why? Because they themselves now are afraid, either afraid of these status holders who are now powerful, or are afraid of certain people within the private sector who are very powerful, and they might victimize them. Maybe they're also afraid of the British government. So, I paid the price for trying to be neutral and to be positive. But yes, victimization does exist. And when it happens, there will be nobody to protect you. I thank you. Have a nice day.
And we thank that listener for his contribution today, as always. I guess two questions emanating from that. I'll take the first. I think he was touching a little bit of what you touched on earlier on with the Honda Fit example. Is it a case where we as a society need to stop saying, well, all of these bad behaviors is him and her and it's coming from them, but when in reality, we might very well need a good dose of, a chat with that man in the mirror, looking within, Mr. Eubanks.
And that's where I think
No, go ahead.
We need to do that, not just be introspective and reflective, but be willing to be held to account. We want to point fingers and hold others, but are we willing to do the same for ourselves? The victimization that exists, the politician, whether the one that was elected and didn't win the seat, the one that tried and didn't succeed, is probably more glaring because it's such a public, sort of undertaking. But does it exist in the private sector? Does it exist in the public sector? And if it does, when we become, cognizant of it, what are we doing, right? We look at things that transpire, and someone does not get a promotion, public or private sector. They are as qualified, if not more so. Do we see that it could be that level of, favoritism that may have been afforded to somebody, or the deliberate, conscious decision to victimize, sticking with the theme, this individual and not, call them that deserved promotion? Now, in the Cayman psyche, I think we believe that what goes around comes around, and we accept it, right? Because it'll come out in the wash. It'll be, every dog has their day. Fair enough. That may be true, and that may transpire, in the days. But
time longer than rope and all of that.
All of that. But in the ensuing period, what's happening? You have a change landscape, the political landscape, the socioeconomic, right? The demographic changes, the accepted sort of culture of the organization, of the community. And when you have other individuals, and it becomes glaring when it's your young individuals who see that behavior and go, oh, right? That may discourage them. They may become, in a sense, deprived of opportunities. What if they become despondent? And that leads to other issues. And this all, to me, is where I'm hoping that the courage that I think exists in us, that is seemingly somehow lacking in our elected, whether the political elected or elected in any organization, to the appointed, where we don't stand in the gap. We don't stand up and speak up and take up the mantle and ensure that the injustices, the discrimination, the victimization that we all hear and say, oh, that's par for the course.
We're running short on time, so I want to be quick. Speaking of courage and standing in the gap and referring to the callers, I thought initial comments that said, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Is there a round two in Sterling Dwayne Ebanks' future? Will you stand in that gap again? Would you put yourself forward for elected office again, having had the experience in this first outing, which, as you said, didn't accomplish what you set out to do?
I enjoy amateur boxing more than professional boxing. I used to watch the days when there were 15 rounds, and it is not any desire, intent on my part, never was and probably never will be, to be a politician. Now, I want, and I would, through prayer and petition, with a sense of positive, purposeful, and meaningful presence, want to be a part of shaping the policy and the direction of this country. It does not have to be through being elected, but God spared life. The desire to help us to get to that space where we are doing what is right and just by the country and for its people. Our politicians may mean well. I want to say that they do. I think we all are called to pray for them. But we cannot allow them to believe that they alone have the blueprint and intelligence. But we cannot simultaneously sit idle by and let things unfold and then say, oh, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, or I could have told you so.
Right.
But neither should we openly try to destroy the political process just because we don't like the person. Now, that, unfortunately, when I had that conversation with some, say, oh, that's naive. No, that's a noble endeavor. And it's one that shows a semblance of maturity, politically and personally. And it's actually incumbent on us that we do our best, always by and for the country, and get engaged. When things continue to spiral out of control, we only have ourselves to blame. And as you shared, let's now look in the mirror and ask ourselves, are we adding to the problems? Or are we trying to find a viable solution?
Indeed. We got one more comment coming from the listening audience. Let's take it now.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Yeah, the victimization is real. That's why the country not gonna get no better. That's why we fight against each other and don't unite, because of the same victimization. The same victimization. They don't want to see another Caymanian. If he's successful, they envy him, or if he run against politics or speak out the truth of what really going on and about an organization or something like that, then you're gonna get victimized, and that's what happening. That's why they need these pilot people on work permit, because other Caymanian is victimized, and those that are victimized are the one that are in a job that they don't want to be in. Most likely they're just there to keep the bills paid. You know, it's a sad situation, but that will have us fighting against one another. The same victimization. We victimize one another. I think Cayman is too small for that, and we just keep on doing it to one another.
Indeed. Caller, thank you very much for those remarks. And with less than 2 minutes remaining, all good things must come to an end, but obviously an opportunity to bring our good friend back on the radio. Sterling Dwayne, the microphone is yours for any final and closing remarks.
Hey, thanks again to both of you for extending the invitation, not just to me, but to other political candidates. I hope that more of us would genuinely get involved with the political process. Start now. Even if it's your declared intent to be a candidate at the next election. Get informed, get engaged, but be genuine, and don't look at it, with an ulterior motive to be elected just to say you're elected. Don't look for the power, to pay, the position, the prestige. Look at what you can contribute to the country, so that at the end of the day, your legacy is one of authenticity. You're genuine, you're sincere, and you have made a heartfelt contribution.
Indeed. Ellio Solomon, with 30 seconds remaining, if you can extend our vote of thanks.
And again, I just want to say thank you very much for all those persons who are listening. Mr. Sterling Dwayne, thank you very much for coming in the studio, taking your time out to comment on some of these issues. And again, for most importantly, taking the sacrifice to run for this country. And again, all the best of luck for the future. And we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Absolutely. With 10 seconds remaining, if you missed any part of today's conversation, well, you can go back to YouTube and our archive and check it out again. But see you tomorrow for more Straight Talk here on Bobo FM.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Bobo 103.1. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the Office Hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
Insurance matters. It gives you the confidence to live life as you should, knowing you're protected.
As a leading local insurer for over 25 years, Island Heritage has a consistent track record of providing best-in-class customer service with quick and efficient claims processing. This means insurance you can rely on when you need it most. The Island Heritage Way. Visit us online at islandheritageinsurance.com today to learn more about our home, contents, motor, marine, and commercial insurance products. Go on and live your life. With Island Heritage, you can.
K-Man, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for moving or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
This is Bobo 103.1. Now in our new home of 103.1 FM. Powered by Health Services Authority. Committed to caring for you. Now, let's rejoin the BBC World Service.
Welcome back to the Forum from the BBC World Service. I am Izzy Lawrence, and I hope you have settled down and switched your phones to silent as we continue our discussion of the history of movie theatres with cinematographer Hemant Chakravarty, film historian Professor Ross Melnick, and Professor of Cinema Studies Daniela Trevari-Gennari. Daniela, I think that in your childhood, some Italian cinemas would still screen films continually throughout the day. So what exactly did a cinema ticket buy you at that time? And when did specific showtimes become the norm?
Well, by the 1950s, the practice of specific showtimes had become the norm in most cinemas, especially the larger ones. Cinema tickets typically bought you an entry to a scheduled screenings with general seating, and that was a system that would help cinema managers managing a more diverse audience efficiently, but also providing a shared communal viewing. Neighborhood cinema still operated with a more flexible schedule or continuous screenings, especially for popular films. I do remember in the 1980s still being able to enter a cinema halfway through the second part and then being able to carry on watching it, repeat and repeat for many times.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was incredible. So the narrative was all distorted in a way. So what the filmmaker had decided that you were going to watch was very different from the experience you actually had. And it was an approach catered to audiences who valued perhaps convenience and accessibility more, especially in areas with working class patrons.
So how did they get the audiences to leave their seats at the end of a film? Because if they were used to sitting there forever, how would they do it?
They wouldn't. So very often, especially when cinemas were really packed, you would get in and stand and watch perhaps 30 minutes of the film standing, and then if someone had already seen that part, would stand up and leave, and you would take their place.
That's mad.
It was mad. But obviously the 1950s was also the time for the expansion of television. So in a way, cinema tickets had to offer not just the access to film, but sort of an opportunity to experience something that television could not replicate. So the big screen, the immersive sound, the social atmosphere of a night out. And in order to compete, cinemas would program double feature, which were very common in the UK, newsreels. There was cinema specifically dedicated to that, sometimes close to the station, or live variety acts that were very popular in Italy to make a ticket more valuable. So while by that time tickets mostly guaranteed you entry to a specific showtime, they really sort of gave you access to a richer, perhaps more engaging entertainment opportunity than home TV.
Now, how about this for an idea? Do you always need a building to screen a film to an audience's satisfaction? Ross, tell us about US air domes.
Well, in the early 20th century, there were certainly a lot of Nickelodeons and deluxe movie houses. There were also air domes, and air domes existed often in urban spaces, and they didn't have roofs. They were quite literally theaters without ceilings. So they were, walls, and you had an entry space, and you also had benches or seats, and they were sort of precursors to drive-ins. If you could think of drive-ins without cars, they would be air domes. And air domes were more informal spaces. They were often more willing to have concessions. They were more willing to have a more, not a rowdy atmosphere, but certainly a more social one. It was an outdoor experience.
And what about travelling cinema shows in Europe, Daniela?
Well, they would be very popular, obviously, in rural areas. I remember a case of a Catholic sort of travel cinema that would go in a specific area to screen films, but also to have a real sense of who were the people and the audiences that would go and watch. So the parish priest would take note of the member of the audiences because of the controversial relationship between cinema and the Catholic Church. So that was quite an interesting sort of example of traveling cinemas. Obviously, the lack of venue was replaced in Europe, at least in sort of hotter countries, by open-air cinemas. I was in one of them yesterday where we were watching a 1940s Lubitsch film with airplane going over our heads and dogs barking and people sort of eating their dinner. So a real sort of multi-sensory event, blending the film with the surrounding smell, sound and social interaction.
I'm curious about how you do all this research into these travelling cinemas, because surely you don't have the building there to prove that it actually happened. How do you find out about it?
Very often you rely on oral histories, so asking audience members what was their memory of specific venue. This is really how you learn, especially in venues where the programming is not available, the experience is not recorded. The only way is through the memories.
Normally, you go to the cinema because you want to. But what about if you're compelled to watch film propaganda by a dictatorial regime? Jia Li is Professor of East Asian Languages and Civilizations at Harvard and author of a book called Cinematic Guerrillas. In it, she documents the travelling projectionists who crisscrossed the provinces of communist China between the 1950s and 1980s. I wondered what a typical setup for a village screening might have looked like.
In the 1960s and 70s, when a projection team arrived in the village, there would usually be 3 people in that team, and they would bring a generator, they would bring projector and the screen and the films themselves, and then they would set everything up in the village, hanging the screens, hanging up the loudspeakers, and once everything is ready by sunset, they would play some music on the loudspeakers, and audiences would be coming from both within the village but also nearby villages, oftentimes bringing their own stools because the films are often shown in open air. People would sometimes sit in the front as well as the back of the screen. And then projectionists would actually have to generate electricity for the films because most of the Chinese countryside in the 60s was still off the electric grid, and there were different types of power generators, but by the 1970s there was a foot-pedaled one, and so the electric current sometimes is even unstable and might shift. There's a lot of I guess not quite accidents, but interruptions and technical breakdowns during the film screening. There's also a lot of sort of time left for rewinding. And in that time of waiting, actually, the audience and the projectionists, they did many things to pass the time, but also sometimes projectionists would explain the film, summarize what audiences had seen, or giving sort of a preview of the plot and explaining the films in the local dialect. Or audiences might be singing. So it's an extremely bustling and happening scene that really goes beyond the films themselves. So when I interviewed people about their movie-going memories, they often talk more about the spaces of screening and also who they went to the movie with. Sometimes even the going of movie-going is more memorable than the movie.
And what about nowadays? Do these travelling cinemas still exist in China?
There was definitely a decline of these film screenings in the countryside with the rise of television from the late 1980s through the 1990s. But the government was actually trying quite actively to revive rural cinema by sending projectionists to the countryside pretty much in the last 20-something years, so that when I went to do field work in various provinces, I saw that in almost every county there were still projectionists showing films in village squares and also some auditoriums. They didn't always have a large audience because the villages themselves are very empty. They have only elderly and children really remaining in the villages, except for holiday times. But they would still come and, treat the occasion of movie-going as a form of community gathering. They might not be paying attention to the films themselves. They might actually be playing mahjong or even looking at their cell phones. But it's still an occasion for people to gather.
Going back earlier in history, I've heard it said that popcorn and concessions